Hey everybody, if you are just joining, we are getting ready to stream here. I don't know if it's streaming yet. I'm watching my phone to see if all the streams are live. So we'll have to see here. I think we are live now because I just got a notification. So first of all, welcome to my stream, 7 p.m. Central Time on Thursdays. We've been trying to do one every week since I started campaigning here in Austin, Texas. And for those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, my name is Donna, Imam, and I'm running for U.S. Congress, brand new district that was created here in Austin, Texas. Early voting in this election starts on Monday. Yeah, that's right. Basically, we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then people are going to start to vote. In fact, people are voting right now because a lot of people have mail-in ballots in hand right now, people who applied to vote by mail. In Texas, you can vote by mail if you're 65 or over, if you have a disability, or if you're going to be out of state for the entire duration of the election cycle. What's interesting about this race, our race right here, is not only a brand new district. Texas was the only state that got two new districts in addition to the 36, I believe. And Austin, Texas, for the first time, got a very blue-leaning district. You could call it a gerrymandered blue district. And a lot of people ask, well, why would the GOP do that? And it's because Austin, Texas was originally sliced into 6 pieces like a pizza, 5 of which were severely gerrymandered red. And over the decade, what happened is the population of Austin exploded, and almost all 5 of these became very competitive races. And if you have a really good turnout year for Democrats, they could easily flip blue. So in order to shore up all the GOP candidates, very extreme ones, in fact, that represent these districts, what the GOP did is made them further redder. And they created what's called a sink district, where they pack in all the Democrats into one district in order to make the other 5 districts redder for the entire decade. So you can see the GOP is very strategic here. They're making sure that they hold on to their power for another decade. Even if the population grows, it'll be very difficult to flip those 5 districts, if at all. So especially we're now at the beginning of that 10-year start. Every 10 years we do census. So for the next 10 years, they're in very good shape. They have a supermajority both in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, and in U.S. Congress. Not a supermajority, but basically have a majority everywhere is what I'm trying to get to. That's what I mean by supermajority. That is not the definition of a supermajority in the Texas State House, just so you know. So today I want to talk about 2 things. One, I want to give you, have a conversation about inflation, because that seems to be the biggest conversation that's going around in our country. And I'll let you decide whether it's inflation or are we talking about price gouging and profits. And we'll go over some specific examples that I have picked for you to make your decision on. And then we'll end by giving you some campaign updates of what I've been up to specifically this week. And I'll give you 2 anecdotal stories. One will be about what I've been talking to right here in this district with voters, and 2 about what is my most favorite spot in Austin in terms of the meaning to me. Now, there are lots of beautiful, beautiful places in Austin, Texas, but what has the most meaning to me? And I'll tell you why. We'll talk about that a little bit later as we close today. So to talk about inflation versus profit, what I did is I went and found about half a dozen stories for you all to kind of review and see what you think is going on in our country and make the decision for yourself. So the first one we have is oil giant BP reports highest profit in 8 years on soaring commodity prices here. So again, we're talking about the oil and gas industry, but they're talking specifically on their commodity prices here. You can also see what they've talked about. They're talking about BP because it's British Petroleum, and they're talking about UK households. It comes at a time when millions of UK households are facing record-breaking increase in their energy bills and cost of living crisis. So it looks like we're not the only ones that are facing the cost of living challenges here. They mentioned that the surge in global gas markets through the final months of 2021, coupled with an oil price rally to 7-year highs, has seen the world's largest fossil fuel giants rake in bumper revenues, but more importantly, focus on profits. So that was example number one. Let's go to example number two. So we heard about gas prices, and you can see here how they've risen in the last 7 years. Now, remember the lumber prices where we have a housing shortage? We can't build houses because of lumber prices. That was a big conversation in 2021, right? Well, guess what? January 9th comes around, and Weyerhaeuser, I think that's the way you say their name, reports record profits in 2021. This is a lumber, I guess I wouldn't call them manufacturing, but processing facility, here in the United States. So again, reports record profits in 2021. So again, we are dealing with inflation. We are dealing with the cost of housing rising all over the United States. But more importantly, Austin, Texas became the 11th largest city in the entire country over the last year in 2021 timeframe. And during that time, the housing prices in Austin have skyrocketed. Like you can not only not get a brand new house here, new builds, you have to be on a waiting list, and you have to outbid that lot by tens of thousands of dollars just to be able to start building a new home, in any of the new developments here in Austin, Texas. But at the same time, we have lumber producers like Weyerhaeuser with record profits. Let's go to the next one, Starbucks. That's been on the news quite a bit, right? We've heard about unionization and union busting a lot in Starbucks. So if you look at Starbucks here, the coffee giant said that it would raise prices once again this year, despite skyrocketing, guess what? Profits. Notice I went and searched for all these articles that talk about profits, not revenue, profits. The company had already raised prices in October 2021 and January 2022, twice it seems, in a very short period of time. According to the company, profit jumped more than 30% in the last 3 months of 2021, while revenue rose 19% in the same period. So they're doing pretty good. So we looked at, oil commodities, gas prices. We looked at lumber, big deal in 2021. Coffee, something that is a very stable in all of our lives as we go to work. And of course, a lot of challenges there with their workforce with Starbucks. Now let's look at entertainment industry. Disney stock soars after a record theme park. Guess what? The common word here is profit all over again. And so record theme park revenue and profit has far surpassed expectations, which were low for a period when the Omicron variant was growing. So this is what they're talking about, their theme parks, not their streaming service, but their streaming success also is producing record revenue. You can see from the headline there. But look at this last part here. Disney increased ticket prices early in the holiday quarter. Okay, so while there's inflation going on, it doesn't matter whether it's entertainment or whether it's a basic staple like getting a coffee in the morning at Starbucks, or whether it's getting lumber for your home or gas prices or oil and commodities. We are seeing record profits and increase in prices at the same time. That was the fourth example I gave you. Now, remember in 2021, we talked about meat prices. I don't know if you remember that, but guess what? Tyson Foods shares set record as high meat prices flatten profits. So they're saying the profits are flattened, but guess what? If you read into the article, you'll see here, not only did the price for Tyson's beef surge 31.7% in the quarter, which ended on January 1st, its operating margins jumped to 19.1% from 13%. So their margins jumped big time. Margins are usually, referred to, it is another word for profits. But if you keep reading down, obviously, the overall sales for beef soared about 25% to $5 billion, and sales rose. That makes sense. So talking about revenue here specifically. But if you get down here, it says net income, which is usually referring to after all your expenses, right? Net income rose to $1.12 billion. So even their income rose as the prices of meat rose. This was quite a big deal in 2021 when we talked about price of food, etc. So next, go to the last but not the least. We have talked a lot about the price of automobiles and the shortage of automobiles. And I want to talk about two aspects here. Number one, Tesla posts record profit, but it won't produce new models in 2022. It says here that the fourth quarter and full year earnings as deliveries of its electric vehicles soared despite global shortage of computer chips that has slowed down the entire audio industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the shortage of computer chips before we get off this topic. And it says, although the company predicted it would be able to build 50% more vehicles than it made last year, Elon Musk said the chip shortage would stop the company from rolling out new models in 2022. That means another delay for Cybertruck pickup, etc. But most importantly, they posted record profit all over again. So you can see the trend here from the beginning to the end. And I specifically picked areas that consumers are dealing with need, in every aspect of their lives, right? I picked specific, food, entertainment, basics like, housing. So lumber is tied to housing, transportation, gas, and of course, automobiles, and of course, food like meat. So I wanted to give you a whole range of this to illustrate the fact that during a time when the cost of living is rising at a rapid pace, at a exponential pace to what we are accustomed to, even in comparison with wages which are rising, the cost of goods and services are rising higher. Even at the time we see that people like in unions, for example, in John Deere had to go on strike just to get $1 or $2 per hour raised. We are seeing this happen. So this is not just inflation. There's a lot of profitability put in here. And you can see some of these. If you read these articles, I'll provide all these links to you. You'll notice one trend, which is corporations are using this as an advantage. When they see the news talk about inflation, they're using this as a way to raise prices and maximize their profits. Now, I wanted to stop on Tesla because I want to talk about two or three things about Tesla. The first thing I want to talk about is Tesla moved their headquarters to Austin, Texas. But when they move their headquarters here, there's a lot of manufacturing that's going to happen right here in the southeast side of Austin. But when this was moved here, one of the things, for example, when we talk about giving companies incentives, the jobs inside Tesla manufacturing plant are not necessarily unionized. So we need leaders. We need leadership in Congress that understands when you do this kind of high-end manufacturing in the United States, that it is important for us to protect workers' rights and boost the wages of workers. So as Tesla posts record profit, that the people who are producing these vehicles that are on the floor, actually putting these vehicles together, also have record wage increases. Today in Congress, even though Democrats generally support unions in a big way, and unions support Democratic, candidates in a big way, we are not seeing the party, for example, with respect to Tesla, being upfront and being ahead of the game, making sure that we not only bring headquarters like this to places like Texas or places like Austin, Texas, but we also ensure that they're high wage jobs that are coming with it to Texas, and not jobs that are taking advantage of people's ability to work. So that was the first point that I wanted to make. The second point that I wanted to make is that in Congress today, one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, Donna, why you? What differentiates you from other politicians, people who are working? Well, first of all, I'm not a politician. I'm an engineer. I solve large-scale problems in the tech industry for a living. And one of the things that is going on in our Congress today is that we have a huge lack of expertise in science and technology in Congress. So many of you who watch my show or have been following me know that I have an 18-year career in technology as a computer engineer and a product manager, bringing many, many successful products to market in multiple different industries and some of the most iconic companies in Austin, Texas. And today in Congress, for example, there are many things that Congress is failing to do. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One is Congress during this pandemic was unable to anticipate the supply chain issues which resulted in this chip shortage. And it is because the majority of Congress does not have the depth of expertise and are depending on lobbyists for major corporations for their information and understanding of what goes inside bills. That is why they weren't able to anticipate this chip shortage, because corporations actually don't care whether you can get an automobile or not, or whether you're getting products and services that are at a price that is affordable to you. They only care about profitability. In fact, profitability is even better than giving you lots of supply, because they want to make sure they get the maximum profit out of it. That's what drives up the value of their corporation, and that's what helps their investors. Remember, investors, not consumers. So Congress right now has a huge lack in understanding of science and technology and how it relates to supply chain, causing these kind of challenges for consumers. So that's the second point that I wanted to make with respect to Tesla. The third point that I want to make is that going forward, in the next decade, we need people in Congress that can show leadership when it comes to technology. They're going to have to address things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, self-driving. And we need people in Congress that understand technology and can write legislation that protects consumers and protects working people in the United States, whether you're an engineer, coming up and developing products and services, or whether you're a product manager bringing these products and services to market successfully for consumers, or whether you were a factory worker and you're in a high-skill manufacturing and putting together these products in order for these products to reach the market for consumers, right? Every single part of this corporation is so important to be able to reach consumers at a price that they can actually afford and that's sustainable. This is what we are lacking in Congress today, and that's what I believe that sets me apart as a candidate for United States Congress versus other candidates that may be running both here in my race, in the primary, and of course across this country. So those were the 3 points that I wanted to make with respect to Tesla specifically. Before we close with my 2 anecdotal stories that I want to share with you. One is about, I've been talking to voters, and I talked a little bit about last week what happened. And this week I want to talk to you about voters that are 65 or older, many of them that I've had conversations with. Many voters don't know how to even apply to get a mail-in ballot. So they'll often call us, our campaign, asking, hey, how do I even apply for it? In Texas, in order to apply for a mail-in ballot, you have to download an application, print it out on your home printer, fill it out, and then take that, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it. So you have to have an envelope at home, you have to have a printer at home, you have to have a stamp at home for you to be even able to apply for a mail-in ballot. If you don't have those resources, your option would be to call the Secretary of State or your local county and request a mail-in ballot application specifically. Once you request that specific mail-in ballot application, they would then mail that application to you. You would have to fill that out, do everything, and you have to have a stamp, by the way. And then once you mail it in, then they will mail in your mail-in ballot. Now, when your mail-in ballot arrives and you complete it, you also have to have a stamp at home. So you can see sort of all the sort of barriers with respect to just being able to apply to be able to fill out your ballot by mail, be able to vote by mail. It is several steps before you can do that. It's not something that you can go online and fill out and hit send and say, hey, I've applied, now it'll come to me. You would think that's the most logical thing to do, because you would put in you need an ID, you need your driver's license or your social security number to fill out that form, and you could hit send. But no. In Texas, you need a signature on paper that is a wet signature, meaning you have to take a pen out and actually sign it in order to be able to apply for a mail-in ballot. These are some of the challenges that people over 65 that are facing here right now and they share with our campaign in when they talk to me, when I talk to them about my election here. And I wanted to share how complicated that process is when people say anybody can vote. These are barriers for many people to be able to vote. So I wanted to share that sort of anecdote with you. The second anecdote that I want to share with you is of what's going on here in Texas. One of the things that happened this week is I was asked by a local news channel to tell them and take them to my favorite place in Austin that has meaning to me. It was more about having meaning to me than my favorite place. Now I have many, many favorite places in Austin. Austin is a very scenic, beautiful city, and there are some wonderful places to go to for wonderful views and hikes. But the area in Austin that is of real significance and real importance to me personally is the corner of 21st Street and University Avenue, where the UT waterfall is there, and you can see two very distinct views that are iconic to Austin, Texas. One is you can stand there and see the UT Tower, which signifies the University of Texas Austin. Austin, by the way it was known, is a college town, a university town. That's how a small little sleepy college town Austin was known for decades and decades and decades before, of course, 2020, when it became the 11th largest city in the country. The saying was, you could get from one side of Austin to another in 15 minutes, no matter what. Well, that has changed drastically in the last decade, specifically in the last 5 years. Congestion and traffic is really, really terrible in Austin. But the reason that I love this place, 21st Street and University Avenue, is because education plays a huge part and is a central part of my platform. The reason that we as a country are on the cutting edge of technology, why we have leadership across this world, is because our ability to produce some of the greatest minds with respect to not just science and technology, but arts and dances, etc. And it's because we are able to offer high quality education in our country, education and training at universities like the University of Texas at Austin, which is not just known well across the United States for its football program, but it's known across the world for its engineering programs. It's one of the top programs for engineering here, as well as other technologies and sciences and arts as well, for example. That is why this is so important. As you know, I am a huge believer in getting debt-free education to anybody who wants it. Not just college education, not just 2-year or 4-year or even graduate school, but trades and certifications also. It is important for us to continue to invest in our next generation, and that is why that spot is so important to me. Now, when you turn 180 degrees and look the other way, what you see is the Texas State Capitol. You see the dome of the Capitol standing on the 21st Street and University Avenue. And that is, Austin is the capital of Texas. That is where all the business of Texas is done. That is where the Texas legislature meets every 2 years to put together the laws and regulations of the state. So that is why that spot is such an important spot to me, because it really ties together the two most iconic reasons why Austin, Texas is known across this country and of course across the state. Those are extremely important areas, and that is why I took that news crew to that spot to show them my most significant spot in Austin, Texas, and I wanted to share that with you. So with that, I want to thank you for watching my stream. I hope that we will still have the stream the next 2 weeks before election is over on March 1st. And I hope you'll join me. And I hope you'll continue to join me for the next 2 weeks. And we'll see what happens on March 1st. So with that, thank you and have